Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
All right, new music, a new show, a new radio personality, but a familiar company name. And we'll tell you what that's about right now. This is a new show called Climate Control. It is being presented by Climate Control Mechanical Services, and Brandon Wood is in the studio. He is a residential service tech. He's here to answer your questions. This is the time of year where we start to say, I can keep my windows open. I don't need the air conditioner on. But that's a short-lived time, and maybe last night you needed a heater. One way or another, we always need to change the way it feels inside our homes and our cars. We can't do a whole lot about what it feels like outside. But Brandon's job is to make sure we're comfortable. If it's hot outside, he cools it down inside. If it's cold outside, he warms it up inside. And that's why it's called Climate Control. And those of you who are regular listeners already know that Climate Control, sponsor our phone number. And so if you would like to speak to Brandon, you will need to call the number sponsored by Climate Control. And this is how we say it every time. I don't know if you've ever heard us, Brandon. WOCA Climate Control Source Hotline, 622-9622. Brandon Wood, nice to meet you. Thank you for coming in.
Nice to meet you, Larry.
Now, what does it mean, residential service tech? Does that mean you only help out with homes?
And light commercial work.
Oh, light commercial work. Okay. And I know you're working on the new studios over at the Cascades.
Yes.
I mean, here we go. Over at the Paddock Mall.
Me personally, no, but yes, our company is.
Yeah. Joe was telling me it's an amazing. He calls it the Silver Octopus.
The Silver Octopus?
Because I guess because there's one central place where all the ductwork comes from. And so it looks like lots of legs coming out as before the ceiling gets put in.
Another term is a spider design.
A spider design, and that would make sense, right?
Yes.
So what is the actual piece that they all go to? Is that
It would be called a duct plenum.
A duct
plenum.
Plenum.
DUCT. Like duct work.
Yeah, I got the duct part, but the plenum part. How do you spell that?
PLENUM.
Plenum. All right.
Plenum.
And what gives that? I mean, where's the actual air conditioning? Outside? Well, obviously outside, but is it on the roof or is it on the ground?
It depends on the system. In that particular application, I believe they've got what's called rooftop units.
Okay.
Where they're actual package units. It's the air handler and condenser all combined in one. The indoor airflow actually comes from that unit and flows through the ductwork, and then spiders or octopuses out to the rest of the building.
Now, I've seen a lot of houses that have what you would call central air, nice big unit sitting outside, and yet they'll have a window unit somewhere in their house. And I often think, why are they going through that expense? Why don't they put whatever ductwork needs to be in there?
A lot of times, Florida was known, this is one particular instance, Florida was known in like the 1950s to put what's called sunrooms in their homes. But we have found that sunrooms aren't really needed in Florida because of the heat in the summertime. Nobody actually used them. So a lot of times to take the strain off the main system, because it is designed for the square footage of the home, they may add a window unit to supplement that extra space.
Okay.
There can be many different areas, though. Maybe because of cost, the cost to add the ductwork, the cost you also you shouldn't just add ductwork to a system. It is designed for the square footage of the home.
I got
you would need to actually upsize the system to compensate for that extra square footage.
Well, and just real quickly about the company Climate Control itself, do you cover all of Ocala, Marion County, Florida? What's the scope of your service?
As far as I've seen, we'll go anywhere in Florida, especially for commercial applications.
Really?
We've got a large job going on in Alachua County right now for a chiller system. We take care of the hospitals here. In Marion County.
Oh, wow.
We just got a contract for 19 pilot service stations, which I know are all over the state.
Yeah.
So we will go pretty much anywhere you need us. Residentially, we stay mostly in Marion County, only because of the cost to the customer. You don't want a service tech coming out 3-hour drive to service your unit. But we will if they want us to.
Oh, really? You know, we have here in this studio the ability in some offices to have individual, like customized, like a thermostat for that one room, which I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you set that up.
You can actually put what's called zoned systems, where there's actually dampers in the ductwork, and it may be one main air conditioning system, but you can actually split that into separate zones and have actual dampers or doors that open and close in the ductwork, and the thermostats control those as well.
Oh, really?
You can get real fancy and get other systems where they can actually heat or cool at the same time on the same system.
Let's say somebody wins the lottery and money is not an issue, and they want to put in the best possible air conditioning unit that exists. Could they overdo it? Could they put too much? And what kind of problems would that cause if they did?
Well, we get a lot of customers that say, well, my house just doesn't cool down fast enough. I want a larger system. And earlier when I was speaking of systems, the tonnage of the systems, or the BTUs, is sized per square foot. If you say put a 4-ton system where you would need a 3-ton system, it would cool the house down faster. Air conditioning is also a dehumidifier, though. It needs that extra time to dehumidify the air. So if you cool your home too fast, you'll be living in a cold, clammy cave. You may have 75% humidity in your home, but it'll be 70 degrees in there. And nobody wants that. So we've had problems with systems being oversized or undersized, in which case they would run forever and never keep up in the summer months.
So that's a huge electric bill on those ones, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
All right, let's go to the phones. That's why you're here, to answer questions. And again, for the listeners, it's a brand new show. Brandon Wood is your host. He is a residential service tech with Climate Control Mechanical Services. You might have heard us refer to our phone number as the Climate Control Source Hotline, and that is because Climate Control actually sponsors that phone line so we can do these call-in shows. And this is the first time, Brandon, that you have actually taken advantage of that line here on this show, so thank you for doing that. All right, you ready to field some questions?
I am.
Good morning. Thank you for calling. You're on the air with Brandon Wood.
We have a room in the back of our house that needs more heat and air, and we were thinking about one of those units where you punch a hole in the wall and it's a long rectangle that fits up on the wall, and then there's a compressor and everything outside. My question is, since it is on the other end of the house from our electrical panel, how much extra wiring and capacity is needed for something like that?
Normally, you're referring to what's called a mini split system. It's a step above a window unit where it's actually a split system. It's ductless, so you are correct. You only have to punch a hole through the wall. If you don't have an existing, most of the residential systems need a 20 amp service, no more than an outlet, say, in your kitchen. You know, it's 20 amps worth of power. You would need an electrician to come in and run a service, and then we would go from there and actually install the system.
So it would require, a separate breaker and everything?
Yes, it would. Most panels that I've seen can handle the extra 20 amps. You can go in. We can certainly find an electrician for you, refer our electricians to come in and roll it all into one package deal. That way you don't have to worry about finding an electrician, having them come out. It would also be a permitted job, so we have to make sure we're following all city and state guidelines.
Well, thank you very much. That answered my question.
You're very welcome.
So there are guidelines that really prevent us as individuals from doing anything more than just a window unit. That's about all we can do, isn't it?
Yes, legally. There is. And you really want to follow these guidelines. For the biggest thing is for resale of a home. The county is really paying close attention to the size of your home, the square footage of it, what size system you have, and we actually have to have all our systems inspected by the county. They come out, make sure the electrical is okay, make sure the installation is okay, and passes their guidelines. Because when you go to resell a system, let's say you did have a system installed illegally and it was not inspected, when you go to try to sell your home, that will come up on Marion County property appraisers. Yeah. And they will say, well, this system's not supposed to be there. You can be fined, penalties, and it's a headache I'm sure you wouldn't want when trying to sell a home.
And I'm guessing there might be some people who do this knowingly, but I'm guessing most people are just totally innocent and ignorant about that, right?
Exactly. There's a lot of people that don't even realize that just replacing the equipment, we do have to have the county come out and inspect it, especially when we're doing any kind of relocation of the equipment. If we were to actually move the location of the equipment, doing any kind of serious duct work, or upsizing or even downsizing the electrical. In that customer's application where he would need electrical service, that is something that definitely needs to be inspected because we're dealing with electrical codes as well as HVAC codes.
Oh, wow. Just to recap, if you have a question for Brandon about your air conditioning / heater, he will answer your questions. I want to talk a little bit about heat pumps in just a second. First, if you want to call in, the phone line is open. Feel free to interrupt, change the subject, because we want your questions to be answered. The number is the WOCA Climate Control Source Hotline, 622-9622. Brandon Wood is from Climate Control Mechanical Services. We've had a pretty mild winter. Heat pumps have probably done their job well this year.
They have.
But in other years, it's gotten so cold for so long that I remember my heat pump was just like useless. I bought one of those plug-in little space heaters.
Space heaters.
Just to kind of help it out a little bit, because I live by myself, so I just had to have heat where I was, and the dog liked to be near me too when I had that thing on. Is the heat pump something we will continue to use in Florida, or is there something better that, like, let's say somebody's not in this, let's say somebody's disagreeing with what I'm saying, like they were saying, no, my heat pump was terrible this year, and there's nothing wrong with the heat pump, maybe they just like it warmer. What are the options for us?
Well, a lot of customers in Ocala have actual gas furnaces as well. They're a lot more efficient when it comes to electrical consumption, but then you have to start thinking about gas prices. In some locations in Ocala, they don't have underground natural gas lines, and you'd have to actually have a propane tank installed in your yard. We have customers that go far as back to have oil burners even. Now, oil burners, I really try to, if they do have an oil burner and they need a new system, we really try to get them either upgraded to a gas furnace or usually a heat pump. I do love heat pumps. And for those of you that don't know, heat pumps have the ability to actually reverse the flow of refrigerant and use the condenser outside in heating mode as well as cooling mode. I am originally from Naples, which is a lot farther south of here,
right.
And heat pumps are almost non-existent down there. We use what's called straight cool systems, in which case your condenser outside the outdoor unit will never run in heating mode. It's just what are called heat strips inside of the air handler. These heat strips do work very well, but they use probably about 3 to 5 times the amount of power as your regular AC would use. But they use the heat so little down there that it kind of compensates for it. It weighs out. Heat pumps, the initial cost is a little more expensive on heat pumps. It's relatively more expensive. It's not outrageously expensive. I actually just did a system. I sold a system a few days ago. The lady originally had a straight cool system where only her resistance heat, it's called, inside of the air handler would work in heating mode, and she is now upgraded to a heat pump. And she likes to keep her thermostat at about 75 degrees, which is pretty warm for the winter. So she will save money now because she has a lot more efficient system.
Oh, wow. Now, what is... I feel like I know the answer, but I'm going to ask anyway because I'm not sure that I know. When do you use the position on the thermostat called emergency? When do you use that position?
Emergency heat pumps actually extract heat from the air. When it's anything below, say, 30 degrees, there isn't much heat in the air to extract, to put into the home. So you can actually isolate the system and only use... Heat pumps still have those heat strips in the air handler that I was speaking of. They're just a little bit smaller. You can actually switch it to emergency heat mode and actually isolate it so your heat pump is completely shut down. If you know, I know in 2010 they had a winter here, a couple weeks. It was about 16 to 20 degrees. Yeah, and that's where you would want to isolate your system and just use the heat strips inside. The emergency heat is also for when the system goes into what's called defrost mode. It turns the heat strips on while it's defrosting the condenser outside to compensate for the cold air.
Oh, okay. I didn't know it did that.
It's basically just a function on your thermostat to be able to isolate. If you want to if there's maybe something wrong with your outdoor unit and we're waiting on a part or just waiting to get it serviced, you can isolate that and just leave it off without actually physically turning off a breaker and just use your heat strips.
And is that something, for example, I've had times where I would see the frost developing outside, and then I just turn it off and wait till it goes away. In other words, I was supposed to have put that to the emergency?
No, this is if your system working correctly starts to frost up on the outside. It actually has a thermistor in the outdoor unit that checks the temperature of that coil outside all the time. And when it starts to see that it's going below freezing temperatures, it actually shuts the system down, turns the outdoor fan off, and reverses the flow of refrigerant and actually puts the system in cooling mode. So all those copper tubes going through the outdoor unit get hot, thawing out the unit. It does that for a minute or two and then turns back on. And that's actually what's called a defrost mode, and it's all automatic. When it gets too cold outside, that's where you start to lose the efficiency of the heat pump because it's doing more defrosting than actually heating.
Talk a little bit about the chemical itself that is the coolant. Do we ever maintain that ourselves, or do we even need to?
It is something that just need to be maintained. It's not something that would be maintained by a homeowner. I'll give you an example. With vehicles today, vehicles have changed so much. You know, the days of almost changing your own oil are almost over. You know, all the sensors that go off, everything that needs to be reset.
Right.
Coolant does not evaporate. It can last the life of the system. If somebody told you that, yes, you need to be recharged up every year, that's incorrect. If you need to have coolant put in, or refrigerant, they call it, then you have a slight leak in the system, in which case needs to be taken care of.
Oh, okay. And a slight leak?
Leaks can range anywhere from a few ounces a year to a couple pounds within a couple months. I've seen large leaks to where I've charged up a system and a week later it's bone dry of refrigerant.
Okay, now help me understand this. You said it does not evaporate. Does it leave a puddle when it leaks?
No, because actually, liquid refrigerant is liquid R22. Its boiling off point is minus 213 degrees.
Oh, so
it comes out as a liquid, but it evaporates so fast that it won't leave a puddle. The only maybe puddle you might see is if there's oil. There is oil in the refrigerant, and you will see that, and that's a lot of good indicators on my part on seeing where a leak is coming from just visually. If I see like oil residue in the bottom of the condenser, or I start to see oil droplets coming out of your drain line, it may be a leak in your evaporator coil on the indoor unit.
So that's how you have to do some detective work to determine where the leak is,
exactly.
Right?
We have a few different ways to detect a leak. We have electronic leak detectors that actually sniff out refrigerant.
Oh, wow.
Kind of like a metal detector, but it's actually a handheld pump that pumps in outside air. If it detects any kind of refrigerant, it gives me audible and signal reading. There's also a UV dye. We can actually put a dye through your system, and it runs through the system for a couple weeks, and then we come back with a UV light, and we can shine that light, and anywhere that refrigerant might be leaking shows. It's kind of like black lights in the 70s. It shows bright, and it's UV activated.
Really?
It's pretty wild. I've put a UV light. I've showed customers on their coil to show them. See that big green glowing fluorescent spot? That's a leak.
That's your leak?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, wow. And is fixing it easy? Is it just a matter of putting some putty on it? How do you fix the leak?
Absolutely not. If
Okay.
it's in a spot, some leaks can be brazed. If it's in a specific component, you would want to replace that component. If you got a leak, say in the copper line set, and the leak is accessible, it can be as easy as pumping the system down and repairing the leak, and you have to do a few other steps like replace what's called a filter dryer. Anytime you open up your system to the elements where it can get humidity or like non-combustibles into the system, you have to do what's called a pump down. You have to vacuum pump the system down and replace what's called a filter dryer. It's basically a filter for your refrigerant.
Oh, wow. Is this a busy time of year for you, or is this kind of a lull?
It can be. It is a lull. In most companies in Florida, it is a lull. Summertime is definitely our really busy time.
And in reality, I'm just taking a guess here. The people who will call you in the summer probably already have a problem now, but they just don't know it. Is that probably right?
Sometimes, yes.
Yeah.
Like on those straight cool systems where their condenser doesn't run throughout the whole heating season. If they have a bad compressor or a leak in the refrigerant, or it's not using refrigerant in the wintertime, they may go to turn it on in the summer. And yeah, it was a problem that could have been prevented months ago. That's why we really try to push the fact that you do need your system maintained at least twice a year.
We just real quickly, let me reintroduce Brandon Wood is here. He is a new host here on WOCA. He's a residential service tech with Climate Control Mechanical Services. And what is the location? Where is your office?
We are at 2695 Northwest 4th Street. We've just moved to a state-of-the-art building. Our shop is something like I've never seen before. We have a state-of-the-art metal shop where it's more for our commercial applications, but we build and design all our own duct systems.
Oh, wow.
Any kind of plenum systems, we build it. In-house, we design everything from start to finish.
Oh, wow. And do we go to you like as a retailer? In other words, do we say, hey, I'm looking to buy a new, not refrigerator, but a new air conditioner? Do we walk in, or how do we do that?
No, we don't. We don't necessarily do what's called a showroom, like if you were buying a new car or a fridge or something of that nature. We would come out to your home because we never do, I call what's from the desk sales. If you call in and you are genuinely interested in a new system or just simply have some questions about a new system, they would send out a sales tech. Right now, we are actually using the residential techs as sales personnel because I can go out there. I may diagnose the system, find out that they need a new system, and put my sales hat on and start to tell them a little bit about their new system. I prefer to be on the job because I do need to check those things like electrical condition, ductwork condition. Is the ductwork sized properly? Are all the boots in good condition? All things that we do on regular service maintenance calls, but we need to find out all the particulars. That way we don't run into any serious problems when the installers actually come in and install the system.
Right. Do you ever have customers that have like special needs? Let's say somebody's got like allergies to everything. Do you provide different types of filters, or is one filter good for everybody?
Absolutely. No, not all filters are good for everybody. When it comes to filtration systems, it can go basically good, better, best. Standard filters are 1 inch thick. It's the ones you see at Publix and Walmart and Home Depot. This is what most people have. If you do have problems with dust and things of that nature, you can go up to 2 inch, then you can go up to 4 inch filters. You can go up to what's called electrostatic systems, where it actually works. I guess I'd compare it to like a bug zapper. When a piece of dust goes through the system, an electrostatic charge actually zaps it.
Wow.
And then you can go a step further. Filters only take out particulate. As much as you see on those 3M filters at the store that say, allergy relief and things like that, those are airborne. It's not particulate matter. It's allergens in the air. It's mold. It's things that get you sick. And that is something that you can take care of with what's called ultraviolet light systems, UV light systems, air purification systems. A UV light in your home does basically what the sun does outside all the time. And actually, the air in your home is probably the dirtiest air you'll ever breathe.
Isn't that amazing? Now, you mentioned earlier you take care of the hospital, so I'm guessing they have real filter needs because
yes,
it's the
they
hospital.
do. They have what's called HEPA filters. They need to be changed out. We maintain them twice a year, depending on the hospital needs, whether it's an extremely clean room, a surgical room. I mean, in general, the entire hospital is a clean area, more than most. But then they have the specific needs rooms, and or air isolation rooms, where they need to make sure they're getting the cleanest air possible in this room for maybe recovery rooms or things of that nature.
Wow, the ductwork in a hospital must be immense. I mean, you must have to crawl through spaces that nobody even knows exist.
Oh, you can. There's literally accesses in ductwork where you could get in and climb around. You know, it's kind of like the equivalent to watching
like one of those movies,
exactly, where they're breaking into the building through the ductwork. That's always the ductwork. You see them climbing through. You probably won't get very far, but that's the movies.
Oh, you won't get far in my ductwork.
Yeah, exactly.
So have you ever found anything wild, in like an animal or something living in the ductwork?
Oh, yeah. Mostly in residential systems where people have problems with squirrels. A lot of times it has to do with mobile homes where the ductwork is actually run under the home. Right. Animals, raccoons, squirrels.
They'll live in there.
Yeah, being from down south, I've seen everything from water moccasins to gators under people's homes.
Oh, how do they get in there? Not under the home, but how do they get into the ductwork?
They actually chew through the flex. I have seen things where mice can actually chew through glass. So almost anything is able to be accessed by an animal.
Wow, you did well. Well, I mean, we're already done, and I feel like I have another dozen questions to ask you. So you're going to do this every week?
We're going to rotate, I believe, format through our other service techs, John and Josh.
Okay.
And they're going to come in and answer questions. But we're going to do it every week, so you'll get to know us.
Okay. Right now, I would ask everybody that if you have an air conditioner, is there a way for them to test it right now, even though they don't need it today? Is there a way to test it?
I would say the best thing to do is, if they want a full inspection on it, is to give us a call. Yeah, basically the only way a homeowner can test it is by turning it on and seeing if it works.
And you really can't tell if it's cold outside.
Exactly. And there's a lot of things that go wrong with the system that you may not realize is wrong. Parts that are getting weak that, if replaced now, can save you a lot of money in the long run. I had a situation like that. Unfortunately, a lady lost some components in her air handler, her gas furnace, which were very costly to replace due to a part that went bad outdoors in the outdoor unit that could have been replaced and would have been found on a standard service.
Wow. Brandon, thank you for coming in. I've got questions, but
it's been a pleasure.
I know we've got another guest coming up. Real quickly, if you want to call Climate Control Mechanical Services, what's a good number?
291-0185,
right.
Area code 352.
And Robin actually has that number on the guest list for AM Ocala Live on WOCA.com. So just look for the 10:35 slot on today's date, and you'll see Climate Control Mechanical Services, the address, the phone number, and there's even a toll-free number on there, I see. And you have a website, OcalaAirConditioning.com? Is that right?
Yes.
That's right. Okay, Brandon Wood, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Larry.
Very knowledgeable. Thank you for coming in. We'll take a little break, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to WOCA News Talk 1370, Ocala's source for what's happening in today's hottest, up-to-date news and topics.
Every day we hear another story about innovation or about cutting-edge technology taking place right here in Ocala. The power plant, IHMC, Ocala 489. Did you know that important medical research is also being conducted here?